The red wine hit my white dress like blood against snow, and in that moment, standing at the altar of Sacred Heart Cathedral in downtown Chicago, I felt my entire world collapse. My sister Sarah's voice cut through the gasps of 300 guests. "Here's to the family's fake little saint." The crystal glass shattered on the marble floor as she turned and walked out, her heels echoing in the stunned silence. My fiancé Michael's hand trembled as he reached for mine, but I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. How had we gotten here? How had the person I loved most in the world become my greatest enemy on what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life? Just 48 hours earlier, everything had been perfect. Sarah and I were at Millennium Park, doing our final dress fitting at the boutique nearby, laughing like we used to when we were kids growing up in our small apartment in Lincoln Park. She was my maid of honor, my best friend, my confidant. We'd survived Dad leaving when I was 12 and she was 14. We'd held Mom together when she worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. Sarah had been my rock through college, through my struggles with anxiety, through every heartbreak before Michael. "Emma, you look like a princess," she had said, adjusting my veil with tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you." But even then, I noticed something different in her voice, a heaviness I couldn't place. When I asked if everything was okay, she just smiled that Sarah smile and said, "It's your day, Em. Nothing else matters." The morning of the wedding, Sarah arrived at our childhood apartment where I was getting ready with Mom and our cousins. She seemed distant, distracted, constantly checking her phone. When our cousin Julie mentioned how Michael had surprised me with the honeymoon to Italy, Sarah's face darkened for just a moment. "Must be nice to have someone take care of everything," she muttered. But when I looked at her questioningly, she was already smiling again. At the church, as we lined up for the processional, Sarah grabbed my hand. Her palm was sweaty, and she was breathing heavily. "Sarah, what's wrong?" I whispered. She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, hurt, anger, and something that looked almost like betrayal. "You really don't know, do you?" she said. Before I could ask what she meant, the music started, and she was walking down the aisle. The ceremony began beautifully. Father Martinez spoke about love and commitment while the afternoon sun streamed through the stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns across the pews. I could see Mom crying happy tears in the front row, and Michael's parents beaming with pride. Everything was exactly as we'd dreamed, until Sarah stepped forward during the Unity Candle ceremony. Instead of lighting the candle as rehearsed, she reached for the glass of wine from the altar table, the wine meant for communion later. Her hands shook as she raised it, and her voice cracked when she spoke. "I can't watch this charade anymore." The church fell deadly silent. "Everyone thinks you're so perfect, so innocent, the sweet little sister who never did anything wrong. But I know what you did, Emma. I know about the money." My heart stopped. "The money? What money?" I looked at her in complete confusion, but her eyes were blazing with a fury I'd never seen. "Sarah, I don't understand," I started, but she cut me off. "Don't lie to me anymore. I saw the bank statements. I know you took Mom's emergency fund. $20,000, Emma. The money she saved for 15 years, working herself to death to have something for emergencies. The money that was supposed to help her retire someday." Her voice broke, and tears streamed down her face. "How could you steal from our mother to pay for this wedding? How could you let her struggle while you play princess?" The accusation hit me like a physical blow. I staggered backward, the blood draining from my face. "Sarah, no, you don't understand." But she wasn't listening. She raised the wine glass higher, and that's when she said those words that would haunt me. "Here's to the family's fake little saint." The wine soaked through my dress, cold against my skin, but not as cold as the horror in the faces around me. Whispers rippled through the congregation. Michael stepped closer, his arm around my waist, but I could feel him trembling too. "Emma," he whispered, "what is she talking about?" I couldn't speak. I couldn't explain because I was drowning in my own confusion and shame. Not shame for what I'd done, because I hadn't done what Sarah accused me of, but shame for the scene, for the humiliation, for the way our family's private pain was now on display in front of everyone we knew. Sarah was already halfway down the aisle when I finally found my voice. "Sarah, wait!" I called out, but she didn't stop. The heavy church doors slammed shut behind her, leaving an echo that seemed to go on forever. Father Martinez tried to restore order, suggesting we take a brief recess. But I knew the ceremony was over. How could we continue with vows of love and trust when my own sister had just accused me of theft in front of God and everyone? I lifted my wine-stained skirt and ran after her, Michael close behind. We found Sarah in the parking lot, sitting in her car with her head in her hands, sobbing. I knocked on the window, and when she looked up, her face was destroyed by tears and mascara. She rolled down the window, but wouldn't look at me directly. "Sarah, please, you have to listen to me. I never took any money from Mom. I don't know what bank statements you saw, but I saw them, Emma," she screamed. $20,000 transferred out of Mom's savings account to yours, and then another transfer to pay for your wedding expenses. I saw the dates, the amounts, everything. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what she was saying. $20,000 from Mom's account to mine? That was impossible. I would never. And then, suddenly, like a lightning bolt, I understood. "Oh my God, Sarah, oh my God, you don't know." I sank to my knees beside her car, not caring about my dress or the gravel cutting through the fabric. "The money wasn't stolen. Mom gave it to me." "That's a lie," Sarah whispered, but I could hear doubt creeping into her voice. "No, listen to me. 2 months ago, Mom found out about her diagnosis. The cancer, Sarah. She's been hiding it from us because she didn't want to ruin the wedding." The words tumbled out of me in a rush. "She made me promise not to tell you until after today. She said she wanted you to enjoy being maid of honor without worrying. The money, she gave it to me because she said she'd rather see me happy and married than leave it sitting in the bank if something happens to her." Sarah's face went white. "What diagnosis? What cancer?" "Breast cancer. Stage 2. She starts chemotherapy next week. She wanted to walk me down the aisle first, wanted to see me married and happy before starting treatment. She made me swear not to tell you because she knows how you are. She knew you'd want to postpone everything to take care of her." The silence stretched between us, broken only by Sarah's ragged breathing. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "She's really sick?" "Yes, and she's terrified. But she's also stubborn, you know, Mom. She said giving me that money was the best investment she could make, seeing her daughters happy." I reached through the car window and took Sarah's hand. "I wanted to tell you so many times, but I promised her. She said after the honeymoon, we'd sit down together and tell you everything." Sarah stared at me for a long moment, and I watched as the anger drained from her face, replaced by horror at what she'd just done. "Emma, the wine, your dress, your wedding, is ruined," I finished quietly. "But that's not what matters right now. I saw the bank statements on her kitchen table yesterday when I went to check on her," Sarah said, her voice hollow. "She was in the shower, and they were just lying there. I thought, God, Emma, I thought you'd manipulated her somehow, convinced her to give you the money. I've been so angry, so hurt, thinking you'd changed, that success and Michael's money had made you selfish." I understood now why she'd been acting strange, why she'd seemed so cold. In Sarah's mind, I had betrayed everything we'd stood for, everything we'd built together as sisters who'd survived hardship through loyalty to each other and to Mom. "I should have told you," I said. "Mom made me promise, but I should have found a way. You're my sister. You deserve to know." Michael appeared beside me, having been listening quietly. His face was grave, but there was no anger in his eyes, only concern. "Sarah," he said gently, "we need to call off the reception, talk to the guests. But that's not important right now. What's important is your mom and getting through this as a family." Sarah looked up at him, then at me, her face crumpling with remorse. "I ruined everything. Your dress, your ceremony, your special day. How can you ever forgive me?" "Because you're my sister," I said simply. "Because I love you. Because we're all we've got, and now more than ever, we need each other." The ride back to Mom's apartment was quiet, with Sarah following us in her car. When we walked in, me still in my wine-stained wedding dress, Sarah with her makeup destroyed by tears, Mom took one look at us and knew immediately what had happened. "You told her," she said to me, and there was relief in her voice alongside the worry. "She found your bank statements," I explained. "She thought I'd stolen from you." Mom sank into her favorite armchair, suddenly looking every one of her 58 years. "I should have told you both together. I thought I was protecting you, but I just made everything worse." Sarah knelt beside Mom's chair, taking her hands. "Why didn't you tell me? I could have helped. I could have been there." "Because you're already carrying so much, sweetheart. Your job, your own struggles. I wanted Emma to have her perfect day, and then we'd face this together." Mom looked between us, her daughters who had just torn each other apart in a church full of people. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault." "No," I said firmly. "It's not anyone's fault. Cancer isn't anyone's fault, and misunderstandings happen. What matters is what we do now. We spent the next hour making phone calls to the reception venue, to Michael's parents, to our relatives who'd traveled from out of state. The story spread quickly through our extended family. The wedding was postponed due to a family emergency, and everyone understood that meant we needed privacy. As the sun set over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange visible through Mom's small apartment window, the three of us sat together on her old couch. I was still in my ruined wedding dress. Sarah had finally washed off her makeup, and Mom looked smaller and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. "I start chemo on Tuesday," Mom said quietly. "The doctors are optimistic, but it's going to be a long road. 6 months of treatment, maybe more. Then we'll do it together," Sarah said, squeezing Mom's hand. "All of us." "What about your honeymoon?" Mom asked me. "Michael already paid for everything." I looked at Michael, who had been quiet through most of our family conversation, giving us space to heal. He smiled and took my hand. "Italy will still be there next year. Right now, family comes first." "Are you sure?" I asked him, though I already knew his answer. It was one of the reasons I'd fallen in love with him, his understanding of what really mattered. "Emma, I married you today in that church, even if we didn't finish the ceremony. The rest is just paperwork and party planning. We can have the celebration later, when your mom is healthy and when we have something even bigger to celebrate." 2 weeks later, we did have a small ceremony, just the four of us and Father Martinez in the hospital chapel before Mom's second round of chemotherapy. I wore a simple blue dress, and Sarah stood beside me as my maid of honor, this time holding my hand instead of a wineglass. Mom, wearing a colorful headscarf to cover her hair loss from treatment, walked me the 3 steps to where Michael waited. The vows were the same ones we'd written months earlier, but they meant more now. When Michael promised to love me through sickness and health, through joy and sorrow, I understood that he'd already proven those weren't just words. When I promised to be his partner through whatever life brought us, I knew I meant it with every fiber of my being. Sarah's maid of honor speech was different too. Instead of the funny stories about our childhood that she'd planned, she talked about strength and forgiveness, about how family isn't perfect but it's permanent, and how love means choosing each other even when we mess up spectacularly. 6 months later, when Mom finished her last round of chemotherapy and got the all clear from her doctors, we finally had our reception. It was smaller than originally planned. Many of the people who'd witnessed our church disaster had probably written us off as a family of drama queens, but everyone who mattered was there. Sarah gave a toast that night that brought everyone to tears. To my sister Emma, who taught me that love means trusting even when you don't understand. To Michael, who showed me what real partnership looks like. And to our mom, who reminded us all that family is worth fighting for. She raised her glass, this time filled with champagne, not wine meant for someone else, and added with a smile, "And here's to the family's real saint, our mom, who survived cancer and raised 2 daughters who finally learned how to talk to each other." The applause was thunderous, but all I could focus on was my sister's face, glowing with love and relief and the kind of happiness that comes from surviving something terrible together. As Michael and I danced our first dance to "At Last" by Etta James, I looked over his shoulder at our family. Mom was sitting at the head table, her hair grown back in soft gray curls, laughing at something one of our cousins said. Sarah was dancing with Mom's oncologist, Dr. Williams, who had become almost like family over the past year. "Any regrets?" Michael whispered in my ear. I thought about that question seriously. Did I regret the humiliation of having wine thrown on me in front of 300 people? Did I regret the months of stress, the postponed honeymoon, the complicated explanations to friends and extended family? Not a single one, I told him honestly. Everything that happened led us here, and here is pretty perfect. Later that night, as we were cleaning up, Sarah pulled me aside. In her hands was a small wrapped box. "I have something for you," she said, suddenly shy. "I've been working on it for months." Inside the box was a beautiful silver locket. When I opened it, I found 2 pictures, one of the 3 of us at the hospital chapel on my wedding day, and another of Mom ringing the bell at the cancer center to celebrate her last treatment. "I wanted you to have something to remember what really matters," Sarah said. "Not the perfect wedding we planned, but the real one we lived through." I hugged her tight, this sister who had broken my heart and then helped me rebuild it stronger. "I love you, Sarah, even when you're throwing wine at me in churches." She laughed, and it was the best sound in the world. "I love you too, Emma. But next time you're keeping a secret to protect me, maybe just tell me anyway. I'm stronger than you think." "Deal," I said. "No more secrets." As I write this story now, 5 years later, I can tell you that we've kept that promise. There have been challenges. Mom had a scare 2 years ago that turned out to be nothing. Sarah went through a difficult divorce. Michael and I struggled with infertility before finally welcoming our daughter last spring. But we faced everything together, with honesty and love and the kind of trust that's been tested by fire and proven unbreakable. Sometimes people ask me if I wish my wedding day had gone differently, if I wish it had been the fairy tale I'd planned instead of the messy, painful, beautiful reality it became. The truth is, I wouldn't change a single moment. That day taught me that love isn't about perfect ceremonies or pristine white dresses. It's about choosing each other when everything falls apart, about forgiveness when forgiveness seems impossible, and about the courage to trust that the people who love you are worth the risk of being hurt. My wedding dress, stained with wine and grass and hospital antiseptic, hangs in my closet next to my daughter's christening gown. Someday, when she's old enough to understand, I'll tell her the story of the day her Aunt Sarah threw wine at me and called me a fake saint. I'll tell her about the misunderstanding that almost destroyed our family and the love that saved it. And I'll tell her that sometimes the most beautiful moments come wrapped in the ugliest packages, but they're no less beautiful for being unexpected. Because in the end, that's what families do. We mess up, we hurt each other, we say things we can't take back, but we also forgive, we fight for each other, and we choose love even when love is hard, especially when love is hard. If this story moved you, touched your heart, or reminded you of the importance of family and forgiveness, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Have you ever experienced a misunderstanding that nearly destroyed a relationship? How did you find your way back to each other? Your stories inspire me to keep sharing these real, authentic moments that make us human. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want more stories about love, family, and the beautiful messiness of real life. Give this video a thumbs up if it resonated with you, and share it with someone who might need to hear that it's never too late to forgive and start again. Until next time, remember that the most important thing isn't having a perfect story, it's having a story worth telling.